He dropped out of college to join the Army. From there, he went on to earn his JD from Harvard Law School. And he went on to play a pivotal role in Berkshire Hathaway, helping them earn over 30% per year and becoming the right-hand man to Warren Buffett himself. His net worth is over $1 billion. So let's go ahead and take a look at Charlie Munger's 10 rules to success. Mentor us, Charlie Munger.
Well, luckily, I got at a very early age the idea that the safest way to try and get what you want is to try and deserve what you want. It's such a simple idea. It's the golden rule, so to speak. You want to deliver to the world what you would buy if you were on the other end. There is no ethos, in my opinion, that is better for any lawyer or any other person to have. By and large, the people who've had this ethos win in life, and they don't win just money, just honors and emoluments. They win the respect, the deserved trust of the people they deal with. And there is huge pleasure in life to be obtained from getting deserved trust. And the way to get it is to deliver what you'd want to buy if the circumstances. It's not my nature, when you get little surprises as a result of human nature, to spend much time feeling betrayed. I'm always want to just put my head down and adjust. So I don't allow myself to spend much time ever with any feelings of betrayal. So you're asking the wrong person, because if some flickering idea like that came to me, I'd get rid of it quickly.
Dave,
I don't like any feeling of being victimized. I think that's a counterproductive way to think as a human being. And I am not a victim. I'm a survivor.
There were a lot of questions today, people trying to figure out what the secret to life is, to a long and happy life. And I just wonder if you were...
Now that is easy because it's so simple.
What is
You
it?
don't have a lot of envy, you don't have a lot of resentment, you don't overspend your income, you stay cheerful in spite of your troubles. You deal with reliable people and you do what you're supposed to do. And all these simple rules work so well to make your life better. And they're so trite.
How old were you when you figured this out?
About 7. I could tell that I constantly see people rise in life who were not the smartest, sometimes not even the most diligent, but they are learning machines. They go to bed every night a little wiser than they were when they got up. And boy, does that habit help, particularly when you have a long run ahead of you. Alfred North Whitehead said at one time that the rapid advance of civilization came only when man invented the method of invention. And of course, he was referring to the huge growth in GDP per capita and all the other good things that we now take for granted, which started a few hundred years ago. And when before that, all was stasis. And so if civilization can progress only when it invents the method of invention, you can progress only when you learn the method of learning. I was very lucky. I came to law school having learned the method of learning. And nothing has served me better in my long life than continuous learning. And if you take Warren Buffett, I can't think of a single example in my whole life where keeping it simple has worked against us. We've made mistakes, but they weren't because we kept it simple.
And that's simple.
I would say that the chief advantage that Berkshire has had in accumulating a good record is that we have avoided the pompous bureaucratic systems. We've tried to give power to very talented people and let them make very quick decisions. In fact, the whole trick in life is to get so that your own brain doesn't mislead you. And I have found that just a lifelong fun game. And I can't remember a time I wasn't doing it. I was not a prodigy or anything like that, but I was a prodigy in having adult interests. I was interested in what worked and what didn't and why. And I could see that very eminent people that I loved and revered were nuts in some ways, and I would decide, well, I certainly like Dr. Davis, but he's a little nutty in one way, and I'm not going to be like that. And so I was very judgmental, and I think that helped me. And also helped me that I kept changing my judgments as I learned more and more facts came in. And that created lifelong habits that were very, very useful. Omaha do so much better than all these powerful minds in great institutions. And I said, well, I think Warren and I know the edge of our competency better than other people do. And that's humility in the Tombrello sense, and that is a very important thing to know. I say over and over again, it's not a competency if you don't know the edge of it. You are a disaster if you don't know the edge of your own competency. Warren frequently says, I'd rather deal with a guy with an IQ of 130 who thinks it's 125 than a guy with an IQ of 180 that thinks it's 200. That second guy will kill you. Don't think the right way to handle every tough guy that's fighting against you is with unlimited hostility. There are times, I think, when they ought to be killed with kindness, even if they're wrong.
Is that emphasis on killed or emphasis on kindness?
I think kindness. There are worse things in the world when you're rich and powerful than giving a little for the peace of the world. Do it. My great-grandmother, he never would have done it by himself. And he made him put his giant tarpon in the library as part of the gift. So always amused me to go by that library and see this giant tarpon. So the eccentrics come naturally in my family. But at any rate, having wrested this success from hardship and danger and trouble, when he was a captain in the Black Hawk Wars, I mean, he was literally a soldier and part of this. He had this theory, looking back at his long life, with this unusual success. And he owned a bunch of farms at the end that he leased to Germans. But you couldn't lose money leasing a farm to a German in Iowa. Naturally, he was successful. But what he said over and over again to his grandchildren, including my mother, was the real opportunities that come to you are few. It's a very fortunate life that is just bathed in opportunity all the way. Most people just get a few times when they can make a huge difference by seizing a huge activity. And he said, when you find one, my dear grandchildren, and you can clearly recognize it, he says, seize it boldly and don't do it small. And my mother, who wasn't interested in finance, but liked to talk the family, she liked to transmit the family quirks. But of course, this guy was my soulmate. The great-grandfather I never knew. And of course, I totally adopted his point of view. And I must say it has worked wonderfully. And so I quit claim my great-grandfather Ingham's rule to you. Assume that your really major opportunities in life are going to be few. And when you get a Lollapalooza, for God's sakes, don't hang by like a timid little rabbit. Don't hang back. They aren't that many of the really big good ones. Cloning is, of course, it's not an ambiguous word when you use it biologically. But when you take it into some other field, cloning is a very interesting idea. You do remove ideas from one place and bring them into another. And if that's cloning, I do it all the time.
Charlie, can you take us?
I like cloning.
On the topic of cloning, do you really believe, as Manisha said, that if investors look at 14 Fs of super investors, that they can beat the market by picking their spots? and will add spin-offs.
It's a very plausible idea, and I have encouraged one young man to look at it. So I can hardly say that it has no merit. Of course it's useful, if I were you people, to look at what other people you regard as great investors are doing for ideas. The trouble with it is that if you pick people as late in the game as Berkshire Hathaway,
Right.
you're buying our limitations caused by size.
Sure.
You really need to do it from some guy that's operating in smaller places and finding places with more advantage. And of course, it's hard to identify the people
Sure.
in the small game. But it's not an idea that won't work. If I were you people, of course I would do that.
What do you mean?
I would want to know exactly what the shrewd people were doing, and I would look at every one of them, of course. That would be a no-brainer for me.
What do you mean by you encourage one young man to pursue it? And what do you mean?
Well, the young man's my grandson, who has a fair amount of money, fascinated by securities, and so I advised him that once you start there.
Wow.
Do you think the equity positions?
What great nuggets of wisdom from Charlie Munger himself. I hope you guys continue to persevere and go after your goals. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video on Charlie Munger's 10 rules to success. Thanks for watching.